I'm going to show you how you can cheat art and turn a regular photograph into a background for any of your illustrations. And let me tell you, this technique is actually way easier than I ever could have expected. You might know me as a professional anime artist, but I'm actually horrible at drawing backgrounds. So instead of getting frustrated and learning how to draw one, I just decided I was gonna fake it and managed to trick my followers into thinking I actually drew it. Before anything though, my mind was thinking about the perfect place I could put my character in. I'm kind of broke, so I was limited to where I could go, so I decided that my dirty ass bathroom was a good enough place to put my character in. My idea is to take my OC Scarlet and put her in front of the mirror like she's doing her makeup. I got some random perfumes I stole at Macy's, some random makeup, and a random curling iron that I found. And I scattered them a little messily over the counter of the bathroom. These objects make the scenery look much more interesting by adding some storytelling to the background. This shows that the character is a little messy when it comes to being organized, and it also shows that she really likes collecting perfumes. But who am I kidding? This is so that I could be lazy and not have to draw random objects on the table later. So for this step, the only thing you really have to do is just find a really cool place to have as your background. You can put your character literally anywhere with this technique. So after setting my scenery, I had to think about the way I was actually gonna put my character in this background. It's obvious that the next thing I need to do is take a picture to draw on, but just looking at this, it's not really clear how my character is supposed to be angled or positioned in it. So my solution was that I was going to have to take two different pictures. This first photo is to actually draw on, so I need to make sure it looks as good as it can. Now I'm going to be using a high quality camera to be taking the picture with, but average smartphones nowadays can actually take really high quality photos. The second photo, on the other hand, needs to line up exactly with your first photo, because you're going to be standing in your second photo with a similar pose that you want your character to be in. This is because when we start sketching our character, we have a good reference for how they should be angled and positioned in the drawing so that we don't have to guess later on. Be sure to take a good amount of photos with a bunch of different angles and positions so that you can go through a lot of them and then choose which one you think is the best looking. So we kind of have an issue. If we were to draw our character now, it would look obvious that the background was photo taken instead of drawn. So we kind of have to retouch the photo if we want it to even look remotely authentic. It ended up taking me hours to find a solution until I found something intriguing. I found an asset that could take any photo and transform it into something that looks hand-drawn. The original creator of this asset also provided some examples, and they just look breathtaking. To basically use this asset, all you really need to do is download it from Clip Studio's asset store, open up Clip Studio Paint, open your materials tab, drag the asset into your auto actions tab, and then click on this one, which I have no idea what it says because it's in Spanish. What this basically is doing is executing a list of pre-recorded steps. So instead of having to flatten the image, change the layer name, level correction, blah, 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 I don't care. The auto action will do all this in a single button press, which is super convenient. Of course, you'll have to retouch some stuff because obviously nothing is perfect, but it immediately looks like it could have been straight out of an anime. You can even remove some segments of the photo and redraw it to make it obviously look more legitimate. Like if you're taking a picture outside, you can remove the sky and make it look more animated. Get ready, because this is about to be the hardest part of the video, and I'm gonna try to give you some advice so that you can do it perfectly. So now we need to actually draw our character in the background, which can be very tedious. In terms of how you draw your character, this technique actually works for any art style, so the way you render isn't really that important. Just draw your character as you usually would, give them some basic lighting, and don't do anything special just yet. So the difficult part comes when you're trying to actually align your character with the perspective of the background. This is why you need that second photo with you actually in it, so that you can actually visualize the perspective of the background so that you don't have to do any guesswork. Another thing that can help is actually Clip Studio's 3D models. This way, if you need more help, you can always overlay these 3D models on top of yourself and have a better model that even has guidelines as well. Now, after I feel comfortable with how everything is set up, I'm just going to create simple shapes over everything so that I can draw my character directly on top of. For the rest of the sketch, I mostly struggled with how the character should be reflecting off of the mirror, but I told myself I'm not going to be realistic. If it looks like it could be the reflection of the character, it's good enough to be the reflection of the character. And so I just rendered like usual. And so here is my drawing after I was done with my character's full render. Ignore the hand and the head and the hair. I got a little too lazy to finish it. Damn, maybe I have a problem with being lazy. Now we are finally at our last step. Your character is already positioned as if they were in their background, but their coloring doesn't really look like it fits in with their environment. So we need to edit the coloring a little bit to fix that. This is the easiest part of this technique and by far the most satisfying. So I'm going to create a new multiply clipping layer over my render. And then what I'm going to do is find what my environmental overlay color is, which is basically the color the environment casts on my character. If you had a background where your character was outside in a sunny day, the environmental overlay color would obviously be blue because of the blue sky. The easiest way to get this color is to simply find a white object in your background and color drop anywhere you want on it. So since the countertop of my bathroom is white, I'm just going to color drop anywhere I want on it and cover my entire character in that color, and then adjust the opacity to my liking. The next thing we're going to do is add some fog to both characters to give them more depth. If you remember from the last video, objects closer to the camera are usually a lot darker, while objects farther away from the camera are usually lighter. With the farther character, we're going to cover her torso in the environmental overlay color we got earlier, and we're going to put this on a normal clipping layer. While with the closer character, we're going to cover her butt in a super darker version of the environmental overlay color, and we're going to put this on a multiply clipping layer. And now, it's starting to look more like the character is sitting inside the environment, which is just so satisfying to see. Now, we're gonna add some hard lighting based on the strong light sources in our backgrounds. In my background, you can't really see it, but there's a bright white light that is casted above my character's head. So what I'm gonna do is add some white light to the top of my character's head. Then, set this layer to an add glow layer. Next, what you wanna do is duplicate this layer and unclip it. If you have any color hanging off of the character, just erase it. You don't have to be precise with it, because the next thing we're gonna do is blur it. And I'm gonna turn down the opacity a little bit. This adds a bit of bloom to our character's head. And now it looks like the light source is so strong that it's being scattered off of top of the character's head. Now, the next thing we want to do is erase some parts of our first multiply layer we've created. We want to specifically erase the parts where our light source is hitting, but not as strong. I'm going to erase this part of her nose and blur it a little bit so that there's a nicer transition between the shadow and the light. I'm also going to erase some parts of her fingers to give some more form to the hand so that it looks more 3D. Now, after you have done this, you might have noticed that the transition between the color of the multiply layer and the erased part of the multiply layer looks a little muddy. So what we're going to do next is add some subsurface scatter. Select a very saturated red-orange color and go over places you've erased with an airbrush tool. Then, adjust the opacity to something that's super subtle, yet makes the transitions between these colors much smoother. Next, we're gonna make the character look like they're interacting with their environment by adding their shadows. This is another reason why the reference picture we took is very helpful, because if you can see, I'm casting a shadow on the countertop near my legs and where my hand is resting on the table. So what I'm gonna do is grab my airbrush tool and use a plain black color to shade. And the last thing we're gonna do is add some overall bloom to the entire drawing to make it look much softer. The difference in quality between the background and the actual character is harsh because the background looks smooth while the actual character feels sharper. So this bloom will make everything more consistent. All you have to do for this step is duplicate your entire drawing, merge it together, set this layer to lighten, blur it, and then change the opacity to what you like. This softens the image a lot and makes it look heavenly. And now, just like that, we've turned this nothing of a picture into an actual professional illustration. If you struggle a lot in art, check out this video where I talk about 5 mistakes that a lot of artists make that you can fix with literally no effort.